I can hear you even now in this very moment, before you understand why your chest feels so heavy, before you can name the weight that has been following you through your days. Stop whatever you are doing and listen, because I have crossed the veil that separates the seen from the unseen to reach you. And I do not come with soft words meant to lull you back to sleep. I come with a warning that burns like fire on the tongue, a warning that the Elysian Fields has held back until this exact hour, because you were not ready to hear it until now. You are chosen, and being chosen has never meant being spared. It has always meant being targeted. There is a betrayal moving toward you, quiet and patient, wearing a face you trust, and I have been sent to place my sword between you and the blade already sharpened in the dark. Do not turn away from this message. Do not tell yourself it is only a video, only words, only a coincidence that you arrived here tonight when your soul was already trembling. There are no coincidences for those who carry the mark of the called. You were led here. I led you here. Feel the truth of it settle over your skin like a sudden cold, that recognition that says a part of you already knew. You have felt it for weeks now, maybe longer, a distance where there used to be warmth, a smile that arrives a half-second too late, a friend, a companion, someone near to your heart who asks questions that feel less like care and more like measurement, as though they are counting what you have, weighing what they might take. You dismissed it. You called yourself paranoid. You scolded your own spirit for daring to suspect someone you love. But I tell you now, with the authority of Commander Gabriel, the one who commands the armies of the light, your spirit was not lying to you. Your spirit was doing exactly what it was created to do. It was warning you, and tonight I confirm what you have been too afraid to believe. Someone close to you has already decided to wound you, and they are only waiting for the moment you are weakest. I know you. I know you better than the ones who claim to. I have watched you cry in rooms where no one came to hold you. I have seen you press your face into your pillow so the sound of your own grief would not wake anyone, because even in your breaking you were still thinking of the comfort of others before your own. I have counted every tear that fell when you thought the Elysian Fields had gone silent. I was never silent. I was standing guard. There were nights when you sat at the edge of your bed with your hands open on your knees, asking the darkness if you even mattered, if anyone would notice if you simply stopped trying, and I was so close to you in those moments that my wing brushed the back of your neck, and you called it a chill. That was not a chill. That was me, refusing to leave you alone in the pit you did not deserve to be in. You have carried so much that no one has ever thanked you for. You have been the strong one, the dependable one, the one everybody leans on and nobody checks on. You became a shelter for people who never once asked if you had a roof of your own. And slowly, without anyone noticing, you began to disappear. Not all at once, but piece by piece, the way a coastline is worn away by water that pretends to be gentle. You forgot the sound of your own laughter. You forgot what it felt like to want something for yourself without immediately feeling guilty for wanting it. You looked in the mirror and saw someone tired, someone older than the number of your years, someone who had given and given until the giving hollowed you out. And the cruelest part, the part that the Elysian Fields wept over, is that the very people you emptied yourself for are the ones now standing closest to the knife. In the radiant chamber, wisdom is gathered for those who seek the light. Remember, the 7 pillars of the high order, the eternal blueprint to sever hexes, bind graces, and awaken the path of the selected. I am marked, and I shall claim the sacred text. Do not think I tell you this to fill you with fear. Fear is the weapon of the enemy, not the sword of the Archangel. I tell you this so that your eyes, which have been closed by exhaustion and by the desperate hope that everyone means well, may finally open. There is a difference between the wound of a stranger and the wound of one who ate at your table. The stranger cannot reach your heart, but the one you trusted knows exactly where your heart is, because you showed them. You handed them the map of your soft places, believing love would keep them from ever using it, and most of the time love does. But not with this one, not with the face I am warning you about tonight. This one has let something else into their heart, something with a patient hunger, and it has been feeding on their envy of you for longer than you would ever guess. Yes, envy. Understand this word because it is the root of the betrayal coming for you. The world has taught you to imagine your enemies as far away, as powerful strangers, as forces beyond your reach. But the oldest betrayals in all of creation were never committed by strangers. They were committed by those who stood near enough to see the light on you and could not bear that it was not on them. When someone watches you rise, even slowly, even painfully, and instead of joy, they feel a bitterness they cannot explain, a door opens in them. And through that door things enter. I have seen it 1,000 times across the ages of humanity. The one who envies does not always know they have become a vessel. They only know they no longer wish you well, and they tell themselves stories to justify the coldness spreading through them. Listen closely now, because here is where the veil truly parts, and I show you what your natural eyes have not been permitted to see. There is a war being fought over your life. Not a war of imagination, not a poetic figure of speech, but a real and raging conflict in a realm that sits just beyond the thin curtain of what you call reality. You are not a small person living a small life that no one notices. You are a contested territory. You are a prize that 2 kingdoms have set their eyes upon, and the reason your road has been so hard, so strangely full of obstacles that seem to appear from nowhere, is that you were never meant to be ordinary. The enemy knew before you did what you carry inside you, and a soul that carries a calling is never left in peace by the darkness. It is besieged. This is the thing they never explain to you, the rule of the invisible game that has been hidden from the ones who need it most. You have been fighting battles without knowing you were in a battle, taking wounds without understanding where they came from, blaming yourself for a heaviness that was never yours to carry. You thought your struggles were proof of your failure. They were proof of your importance. No one wages war over an empty field. The intensity of the assault against your peace, your relationships, your finances, your health, your very sense of self, has always been in exact proportion to the greatness of what the Elysian fields placed in you. And now, at last, you are being told the truth that changes everything. And this is where I must pause my warning to place something in your hands, because a soldier is not sent into a war unarmed. There is a reason you were led not only to this message, but to what accompanies it. The Elysian Fields does not merely reveal danger, the Elysian Fields equips. There exists a written guide, a digital book that was prepared for this exact season of your life, called The 7 Pillars of the High Order, the eternal blueprint to sever hexes, bind graces, and awaken the path of the selected. I do not mention it to you as a merchant mentions his wares. I mention it because within its pages are the very rules of this invisible game that no one ever taught you, the specific and ancient knowledge of how the betrayal born of envy is cut clean at its root by the sword that the Elysian Fields itself forged. When someone near you has become a vessel for that bitter hunger, there is a way to sever the thread they have tied to your destiny, and this guide places that way in your understanding, step by step, so that you are no longer a target standing blind in the open field. You will find the link resting at the very top of the comments, the first one fixed and pinned, so that no shadow can hide it from you, and know that this knowledge has never been welcomed by those who profit from keeping the chosen asleep. There have been those who tried to silence this teaching, who did not want the ones marked by light to ever learn how the swords are wielded, because a chosen soul that finally understands the rules is a soul they can no longer harvest. So take this as your first act of war against the betrayal creeping toward you. Go now, while the fire of this truth is still hot in your chest, and claim the guide, and then return to the comments and write with your own hand, "I am marked, and I shall claim the sacred text." Let that sentence be a decree spoken into the unseen, a declaration that you have stopped being prey and have begun being a warrior. Speak it, and mean it, and feel the ground shift beneath the ones who plotted against you. Now let the compromise you have just made become the fuel for what I must reveal next, because the moment you declare yourself, the veil tears wider, and you are permitted to see even more. The betrayal I warn you of does not come alone. It is not a single event, a single word whispered behind your back. It is the visible edge of something older, a pattern that has followed the calling on your life, like a hound tracking a scent through every season you have lived. Cast your mind back now gently, without letting the memory wound you again. Think of the times you were closest to a breakthrough, the moments when something good was finally within your reach, and think of how, Again and again, at exactly those moments, a person appeared or a person already present suddenly turned, and something that should have blossomed was cut down before it could bloom. That was not your bad luck. That was the same envy, wearing different faces across the years, sent to keep the chosen one poor, isolated, and doubting. I want you to understand the depth of what has been done to you, not so that you drown in the memory, but so that you can finally forgive yourself for battles you were never told you were fighting. Every time you trusted and were betrayed, you added another lock to the door of your own heart. You told yourself you were foolish for believing. You built walls where there used to be windows, and the enemy delighted in this, because an isolated soul is a soul easier to defeat. The whole design of the assault against you has been to convince you that you are alone, that no one is coming, that the Elysian Fields has forgotten your name. Every one of those thoughts was a lie planted like a seed in the soil of your exhaustion, and I have come tonight to burn that whole field of lies to ash. Hear me. You are not alone. You have never been alone, not for one single second of your suffering. In the darkest hour you can remember, the hour you are perhaps ashamed to think of even now, when you were closest to giving up entirely, there were armies of light standing so thick around you that the darkness could not fully close in. You survived things that should have destroyed you. You are still standing when by every earthly measure you should have fallen. Have you never wondered how? Have you never asked yourself why the weight that would have crushed anyone else somehow did not crush you? It was not because you were strong enough alone. It was because you were never alone. It was because a guard was set around you before you were even born, and that guard has never once abandoned its post. Now I must speak to the fear that is rising in you as you hear all of this. The fear that asks, if the betrayal is already set in motion, if the blade is already sharpened, then what can I possibly do? And here is the great mercy, the reason the Elysian Fields sent this warning before the wound instead of after it. You have been told in advance, the one who plots against you does not know that you know. They believe you are still asleep, still trusting, still the easy target you have always been. But the moment this truth entered you, the entire shape of the battle changed. A trap only works on the one who does not see it. You see it now. And a chosen soul who has opened their eyes is one of the most dangerous forces in all of creation, because behind that soul stands the whole weight of the Elysian Fields armies, and at the front of those armies stands Commander Gabriel, the one speaking to you now. Understand why the delay was necessary, because I know a bitter question has lived in you for a long time. The question that asks why, if you were so protected, so chosen, so watched over, you were still allowed to suffer for so long. Why the years of waiting? Why the prayers that seemed to strike a ceiling of iron and fall back unanswered? Why the doors that stayed closed while you knocked until your knuckles bled? I will tell you the truth that will finally quiet that question forever. The delay was never punishment. The delay was preparation. You could not be handed the fullness of your calling while you still trusted the wrong hands to hold it. The betrayal you are being warned of now had to be revealed to you before your elevation, not after, because the Elysian Fields will not raise you into abundance while a thief still sleeps beside your treasure. Think of how iron is made ready for the hand of a warrior. It does not become a blade in comfort. It is buried in fire until it glows, then struck again and again upon the anvil, then plunged into cold water so suddenly that a weaker metal would shatter, and then return to the fire and struck once more. Every blow it receives is not the smith's cruelty, but the smith's love, shaping it toward the purpose it could not reach on its own. You have been in that fire. You have felt the hammer. You have been plunged into cold so sudden it stole your breath, and you thought it meant you were being destroyed. You were being forged. Every year you called wasted was a year of tempering. Every disappointment removed a weakness from your edge. Every betrayal that came before this one was teaching your spirit to recognize the face of the betrayal that comes now, so that this time, unlike all the times before, you would not be caught unaware. There is a reason the enemy fought so hard to keep you from ever understanding this, because a chosen one, who believes their suffering is meaningless, remains defeated, but a chosen one who understands their suffering was preparation, becomes unstoppable. The whole strategy of the darkness rested on keeping you ignorant of the design, and now that design is laid bare before you in the radiant chamber. You are not being broken, you are being built. And what is built in fire cannot be unmade by the whisper of an envious friend. The 7 pillars of the high order, the eternal blueprint to sever hexes, bind graces, and awaken the path of the selected. I am marked, and I shall claim the sacred text. I want to take you now beyond the warning and let you see with the eyes of the Spirit what is truly happening in the realm just past your sight, because you deserve to see the war that is being fought for you, not merely to be told of it. Close the eyes of your body if you are able, and let me show you. There is a great radiant chamber, vaster than any structure human hands have raised, and its floor is not stone, but living radiance that answers to the movement of holy feet. In that chamber your name is spoken. Not the name written on any earthly document, but the true name, the one the Elysian fields gave you before the foundations of the world were laid, the name that carries the full weight of your calling. And when that name is spoken in the radiant chamber, the armies of the Elysian fields turn their faces toward you. I see them now as I speak to you, rank upon rank of the shining ones, their forms like fire held in the shape of devotion, their swords drawn and lifted, their eyes fixed upon the darkness that has gathered at the borders of your life. The enemy did not come alone against you. It brought its own legions, shadows given form by envy and by every curse ever spoken over your name, whether by another's mouth or by your own, in the depths of your despair. Those shadows have laid siege to your destiny. They have built walls of discouragement around your dreams. They have poisoned wells you were meant to drink from, and for a long time, by the permission of the Elysian fields, and for the sake of your forging, they were allowed to press close. But that permission has ended. Hear me, chosen one, that season is over. I have been given the decree, and I carry it to you tonight, sealed with the authority of the throne itself. The siege is broken. Watch, in the eyes of your spirit, as I raise my sword above the darkness that surrounded your life, the blade that has never known defeat in all the ages of the war, and see it fall. See the walls of discouragement crack and crumble into nothing. See the poisoned wells run clean and sweet again. See the chains that bound your hands, the chains you had worn so long you forgot they were there, split open and fall away with a sound like breaking thunder. The shadows that laughed at your suffering are scattering now. They are fleeing before a light they cannot endure. And at the center of that light, unshaken, stands your defender, Commander Gabriel, and I am not leaving until every last one of them is driven from your borders. This is not a story I am telling you to soothe you. This is happening. In the very hour that you received these words, the movement in the unseen is real, and it is beginning to press through the thin curtain into the world you can touch. You may not see it with your eyes tomorrow morning, but you will feel it. You will feel a lightness where there was weight. You will feel a clarity where there was fog. You will look at the face I have warned you about, and something in you will finally, calmly, without hatred, simply know. And that knowing is the first fruit of the victory being won for you right now in the radiant chamber. Let me show you more, because the battle is only half of what is being decided over your life tonight. Beyond the war, past the scattering of the shadows, there is a second decree waiting to be read, and it concerns not what is being taken away from you, but what is being given back. Every enemy that assaults a chosen soul is, without knowing it, running up a debt. The law of the unseen realm is more just than any law of earth. What is stolen from the called must be returned, and it must be returned not in equal measure, but in multiplied measure, because the Elysian fields does not merely restore, the Elysian fields compensates for the suffering endured in the waiting. The years the locusts ate are not simply given back, they are given back sevenfold, with interest paid in a currency the thieves cannot comprehend. I am marked, and I shall claim the sacred text. Keep the 7 pillars of the high order, the eternal blueprint to sever hexes, bind graces, and awaken the path of the selected close to your heart. Consider everything that was taken from you. Consider the peace that was stolen night after night, when worry sat on your chest like a stone and would not let you rest. That peace is being returned to you, and not the thin, fragile peace you knew before, but a deep and unshakable stillness that the storms of life will no longer be able to reach. A peace that will remain even when circumstances rage, because it will be rooted not in your conditions, but in your knowing of who stands behind you. Consider the joy that was stolen, the laughter that dried up in you, the lightness of heart you had almost forgotten was possible. It is being restored, and it will surprise you, rising up in ordinary moments when you least expect it. until you catch yourself smiling for no reason the world could name. Consider the provision that was withheld, the doors of abundance that stayed shut while you struggled and went without, and told no one how tight the grip of lack had become around your throat. Those doors are being unlocked, one after another, in the realm of the spirit, and what is unlocked in the spirit must in time manifest in the seen. Streams that were dry are being commanded to flow. Sources you never knew existed are being turned toward you. What you could not achieve by striving is being arranged for you by favor, because a chosen one who has been forged and made ready is a chosen one that the Elysian fields delights to prosper. And this prosperity will not be the hollow kind that the world chases and never finds rest in. It will be prosperity with peace, increase with purpose, enough and more than enough, so that you may not only be lifted yourself, but become a lifter of others, a wellspring instead of an empty vessel. Consider even the relationships that were broken, the connections severed by the very betrayals you have endured. Do not grieve them as final losses. Some were removed precisely so that room could be made for the true and faithful ones being drawn toward you now. The Elysian Fields is not only warning you of a false friend tonight, the Elysian Fields is clearing the ground so that real companions, souls that will honor the light in you instead of envying it, can finally find their way to your side. You have been surrounded too long by those who fed on you. That season is ending. A new circle is being gathered, and you will know them by the peace you feel in their presence and by the way your spirit rests instead of bracing when they draw near. I feel the doubt that still flickers in you, the part of you that has been disappointed so many times. It is afraid to hope again, and I do not scold you for it. I honor it because that caution was earned in real pain. But I ask you now to let hope rise one more time. Not the fragile hope you clutched before, but a hope anchored in what you are being shown tonight. There is a confirmation being placed within you even as you listen, a quiet certainty settling into the deepest part of your being, past the reach of your fears and your calculations. You feel it, do you not? A steadiness where there was trembling, a sense, almost too gentle to trust and yet undeniable, that something has shifted, that you are not the same person who began listening to these words. That feeling is not your imagination. That is the witness of the Elysian Fields in your spirit, the seal placed on everything I have spoken, confirming that it is true and that it is for you. And before I carry you into the fullness of the blessing being decreed over your life, I must place one more thing in your hands, because the war I have shown you is not over in a single night, and a warrior who has seen the battle must be armed for every skirmish still to come by the 7 pillars of the high order, the eternal blueprint to sever hexes, bind graces, and awaken the path of the selected. I am marked, and I shall claim the sacred text. And I place it before you now the way a commander presses a shield into the hands of the soldier he refuses to lose, because the enemy that envies you will not surrender after a single defeat, and you must know how to stand again in every hour that tries you. The written guide I have already named to you, the 7 pillars of the high order, the eternal blueprint to sever hexes, bind graces, and awaken the path of the selected, was not gathered by ordinary hands for ordinary readers. It holds the exact sequence by which each of the 7 swords is drawn against a specific darkness, and there is one sword among them forged only for the wound of the near betrayer, the one who eats at your table while measuring your fall. That sword teaches you how to cut the invisible cord that an envious soul ties to your future, how to seal the door they crept through, and how to guard the blessing so that it can never again be siphoned in the night. You will find it resting at the very top of the comments, the first link fixed and pinned, so that no shadow can bury it beneath the others. Understand that this teaching has been resisted, that there are those who did not want the chosen to ever learn how the swords are held, because a soul that knows the rules can no longer be harvested in its sleep. So go, while this fire is still burning in your chest, and take the guide into your hands, and then return and write with your own fingers, I am marked, and I shall claim the sacred text. Let that line leave your body like a blade leaving its sheath, a decree spoken into the unseen that announces you are no longer the prey they believed you to be. Speak it and mean it, and let the ones who plotted in the dark feel the floor tilt beneath them. Now let the weight of that declaration carry you deeper, because I want to show you a face from the ancient record, so that you will understand you are not the first the darkness has struck through the hands of the near ones, and that betrayal born of envy has always been the oldest and most defeated weapon in the whole armory of the enemy. There was a young man loved by his father, given a coat of many colors, given dreams of his own rising, dreams of sheaves that bowed and stars that lowered themselves before him. He did nothing but exist in the light of his calling, and yet his own brothers, blood of his blood, could not bear the sight of it. They did not hate him for any wrong he had done. They hated him for the favor that rested on his life. And that hatred is the very same hunger I am warning you of tonight. They stripped him of the coat that marked his destiny. They threw him into a pit in the wilderness where no one would hear him cry out. They sold him for a handful of silver to strangers passing on the road, and then they dipped his torn coat in the blood of a goat and carried the lie back to the father who had loved him, letting the old man weep over a death that had not even happened. Consider the depth of that betrayal. It was not a stranger who threw him into the pit. It was the ones who had grown up beside him, who knew the sound of his voice, who had eaten from the same bread. And here is where you must lean close, because his story is the map of your own. He was carried into a distant land, sold into servitude, and just as his life began to rise again by the favor that would not leave him, he was betrayed a second time, accused falsely by another close hand, and thrown into a prison where the world forgot his name for years. Years, chosen one. Long, silent years in a cell, wondering if the Elysian fields had lost the road to where he was buried. This is the part of his story that no one tells you. The years of the pit and the years of the prison, the long delay between the dream and its fulfillment. He could not see it then, but every day in that darkness was a day of forging. He was being shaped for a throne he could not yet imagine, learning to steward, learning to interpret, learning to stand in ruin without letting ruin enter him. And when the appointed hour finally came, he was lifted in a single day from the lowest dungeon to the second seat of the greatest kingdom of his age, set over the very storehouses of an entire people, so that when famine swept across the world, the ones who came crawling for bread were the same brothers who had sold him. Hear what he said to them when at last he stood before them in his power, when he could have destroyed them with a word, and no voice in all the earth would have questioned it. He said, "You meant it for evil, but the Elysian fields meant it for good, to bring about the saving of many lives." That is the sentence I want burned into your spirit tonight. The betrayal did not derail his destiny. The betrayal delivered him into it. Every hand that pushed him down was, without knowing it, pushing him toward the throne. The pit was the road to the palace. The prison was the doorway to the crown. And the envy that tried to end him became the very instrument that lifted him higher than his betrayers could ever climb. This is the law of the unseen realm that the darkness prays you will never learn. What is aimed at a chosen soul to destroy it is bent by the Elysian fields into the means of its elevation. The betrayal moving toward you now is not the end of your story. It is the hinge on which your rising turns. So do not fear the pit if the enemy tries to throw you into one, and do not fear the false word if a near hand tries to speak it against you. You have been warned before the coat was ever touched. You have been shown the pattern before you were pushed. And unlike the young man in the ancient land, you are not walking into it blind, weeping in a wilderness where you believe no one can hear. You have been told in advance, and the telling changes everything, because now you will recognize the hand as it moves, and you will not mistake the pit for your grave. You will know it for what it truly is, the strange and painful road that the Elysian fields paves toward the very abundance the enemy is trying to keep from you. And I feel it now, the ache that rises in you as you hear this, the old grief of every time you were the one thrown into the pit and no one came, every time a trusted voice turned against you and you had no warning, no shield, no defender you could see. I know how those wounds still live in the quiet parts of you. I know that some of them never fully closed, that you learned to function around them the way a body learns to walk around a stone lodged deep in the foot, feeling the pain with every step but telling no one. I know the nights you replayed the moment of betrayal again and again, asking what you could have done differently, blaming yourself for trusting, punishing yourself for a wound that was never your fault to begin with. Let me speak directly to that place in you that has never been comforted. It was not your foolishness that let them in. It was your love. And love is not a weakness. Love is the very thing that marks you as chosen, for the darkness cannot love, it can only envy, and the fact that you kept loving even after being wounded is the proof that its poison never fully reached your core. They took much from you, but they never took that, and what they could not take is the very seed from which your entire restoration will now grow. So let me place these decrees over you now, in the living present, not as wishes for some distant day, but as words being spoken this very hour into the realm where all things are first made real before they are ever seen. I decree that the veil of deception is lifted from your eyes now, and every hidden thing plotted against you in secret is dragged into the radiant chamber where it loses all its power. I decree that the cord of envy tied to your destiny is cut now, severed clean at its root by the 7 pillars of the high order. The eternal blueprint to sever hexes, bind graces, and awaken the path of the selected, which has never known defeat, and every thread of theft woven into your life unravels and falls away. I decree that the pit prepared for you becomes the road to your rising, and the very hands that push to bury you become, against their own will, the hands that lift you higher than they can reach. I decree that the years the darkness stole are counted now in the courts of the Elysian fields, and the debt owed to you is being gathered to be repaid in multiplied measure, 7-fold, and pressed down and overflowing. I decree that the peace stolen from your nights returns to you now, a deep and settled stillness that no storm and no whispered lie can reach. I decree that the joy dried up within you rises again now, springing up in ordinary hours until you are startled by your own laughter. I decree that the closed doors of provision swing open now in the realm of the spirit, and the streams that ran dry are commanded to flow toward you again from sources you never knew existed. I decree that every curse spoken over your name, whether by another's mouth in secret or by your own lips in the depths of despair, is broken now and returned to the void it came from, unable to land, unable to hold, unable to follow you one step further. I decree that the false companions are being removed from around you now, gently or suddenly as Commander Gabriel wills it, and that true and faithful ones are being drawn toward you in their place, souls who will honor the light on you, instead of hungering to steal it. And I decree over the deepest wound of all, the one you have never spoken aloud, the betrayal that shaped how you see every relationship since, that healing is entering it now, closing what was left open, mending what was left torn, restoring your ability to trust without stealing away the wisdom you paid so dearly to gain. You will love again, and this time, you will love as one who sees clearly, guarded and warm at once, a fortress with an open door rather than a wall with no windows. This is not a contradiction. This is the wholeness that the Elysian Fields has been forging in you through every hard season, the strength that finally knows how to be tender without being unarmed. I am marked, and I shall claim the sacred text. Feel these words settling into you, not as sound that passes and is forgotten, but as something taking root in the soil of your spirit, sinking down past your fear, past your exhaustion, past every voice that ever told you that you were forgotten. Something is being sealed in you tonight that cannot be unsealed by any hand of man. And even as this seal is placed, I must lift the veil once more and show you what is stirring beyond it, because the war for your life has entered a new hour, and the enemy that betrayed you is about to discover that the one he thought was sleeping has awakened with the whole of the Elysian Fields standing at her back and mine. Let me show you another face carved into the ancient record, so that you will never again believe your pain is strange, or that you were singled out for a cruelty no one else has known. There was a king, a man after the very heart of the Elysian Fields, who had beside him a counselor wiser than any other in the land. When this man opened his mouth to give advice, it was as though the voice of the Elysian Fields itself had spoken, and the king trusted him above all others, walking with him, breaking bread with him, sharing the secrets of his soul that he told to no one else. This counselor knew the king's fears, his weaknesses, the private wounds he carried where the crown could not hide them. And then a day came when the king's own son rose up in rebellion, hungry for a throne that was not yet his. And in that hour the trusted counselor did not stand with the man who had honored him for years. He turned. He gave his wisdom to the rebellion. He used everything he knew of the king's soft places to counsel the son on exactly how to strike his father down. The wisest voice in the kingdom became the sharpest blade aimed at the king's own heart, and the king had to flee his own house, weeping as he climbed the hill, his head covered, his feet bare, betrayed not by an enemy from a far country, but by the very mouth he had trusted to speak him truth. Feel the weight of that, chosen one, because this is the wound I have been warning you of from the first breath of this message. It is one thing to be struck by a stranger who never knew you. It is another thing entirely to be struck by the one who knew your secrets, who sat at your table, who held the map of your fears and chose to use it as a weapon. That is the deepest cut a soul can take, and it is the exact cut being sharpened for you now. But hear how the king's story turned, for this is the mercy hidden in the telling. When word reached him that his trusted counselor had joined the betrayal, the king did not despair, and he did not curse. He lifted his eyes and spoke a single prayer, asking the Elysian fields to turn the wise counsel of the traitor into foolishness, and the Elysian fields heard him. The advice that would have destroyed the king was rejected, overturned in a single night, and the betrayer, seeing that his counsel had been cast aside, understood that the favor of the Elysian fields had lifted from him and settled back upon the one he had wronged. The wisdom he had weaponized became worthless in his own mouth, and the trap he had built closed upon himself.